So value engineering on the very early days is very, very practical. It's literally getting their data, putting it into solution, taking a look at what you can do from a segmentation perspective, any insights that you can do. Now, as you get a little bit more mature, what we found is that, yes, people are believing that that value proposition is in the market. And so now you'll hire more experts to have them build these higher level business cases. I love folks who have grand ideas, just very practical around, make sure that any technology or anything that you're creating is providing value, whether it's, through healthcare, technology, whatever it is, that it's providing value. It's one of those things where, we get lost in ideas, and sometimes that can be, I think, crippling at times.
Hey, this is Alex Shartsis, host of the Seed to Sequoia podcast. Welcome. If you like this podcast, please like and subscribe it in whatever you're listening to it on. It really helps other founders find us, and it helps us get the guests that you enjoy hearing from. Speaking of guests, today we have a really interesting one. Rob Christenson was the SVP of Global Sales at PROS for a long time. PROS is a public company. They do pricing. If you know me, you know I started an AI pricing company back in the 2010s, and PROS was the target. PROS was the company we were trying to take down. So it's really always interesting to hear what things look like from the other side, from the established side. But I think what's more interesting is what Rob's working on now, which is a company called Opro AI. Opro is applying AI to stuff that you and I would never have thought of, like the chemical processes to convert petroleum into other useful products, in the chemical process behind building concrete or making concrete. He has a really interesting background in sales. Like I said, he was an SVP of a company in sales that he took public. So he has a lot of thoughts on go-to-market. And also now he's got all the scars from being a founder. So I'm excited to bring you this interview with Rob Christenson from Opro AI on the Seed to Sequoia podcast. Let's get started. Welcome to Seed to Sequoia. Super excited today to have Rob Christenson with us. Rob is the founder and CEO of Opro AI. Rob, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate the time here. My background is in enterprise sales, degreed chemical engineer way back in the day. Had some success in founding companies, going from basically $0 to one exit at about $100 million a year. And this new company, Opro AI, is really kind of the next step in our careers as we look at, taking a company that's very, very small and growing it to an enterprise level.
Really excited to have you on the podcast. I think you're my first guest who does industrial AI. So in the beginning, you were telling me about it. Can you just share with the audience, what is industrial AI?
Yeah, it's really practical AI, Alex. It's, everybody talks about the use cases. Well, we are a practical use case of that AI. So if you imagine, a manufacturing facility where you bring in, let's say, a barrel of oil and what comes out is gasoline, we provide an AI layer on top of that industrial process to optimize the outcome. So get more gasoline, also reduce energy, that you would take to process that gasoline. And then lastly, we do something that, reduces carbon emissions as well. So we really kind of impact the environment as well as, create additional product for our customers.
There's a lot of different ways I could go with this. I think one of my big things with AI companies is that there is no AI company, right? Like you are I think you do AI, but you're really sort of an oil and gas company, right? That's what the focus is from an industry.
Yeah, right now it is, because that's the kind of the lowest hanging fruit. We've actually done work in the cement space and also the metals and mining space as well. So again, any large continuous process that can be optimized, we have the capabilities to do that for customers. Yes.
And it sounds like you're selling it at specific pain points, like you mentioned a couple in the beginning, and I'm sure the cement world is similar. Like, how did you find those pain points? Where did it start? Maybe the origin story is what I'm asking. Where did it start?
I did mention I was a chemical engineer for a reason. So my first job out of college many a moon ago was selling what they call process control solutions. So think about computer systems that help run these facilities. Just kind of being an engineer and taking a look at things. It's like, yeah, we're using yesterday's technology on these processes today. We're using linear technologies that can't adapt or understand the changing conditions within these facilities at a rate that you can take advantage of. And so it's always been kind of a pet project of mine. And I had the opportunity to run into a gentleman named Eric Zing. He's the CEO of Petuum. And if you believe Computer Science Magazine, he's the #1 AI researcher in the world. And so I said, Eric, it sounds like your technology could be a real application in the oil and gas space. And so I was able to go to do a little bit of work in 2020 and 2021 to validate that. And Opro is actually a spinoff of Petuum, where we've used that technology originally created at Petuum, applied it to the industrial space, and right now, Opro AI is solely in the industrial automation space. So that's the origin story.
Yeah. So when you talk about the industrial automation space, I mean, it sounds like it spans a bunch of different verticals. So you and I had talked before about your time at PROS, like the public company that does pricing software. So you knew the industrial space from that because a lot of their customers are in the industrial space. Tell me about how you did that. Like, was it just going to people you already knew, or was it, real slog, or maybe it was people you already knew and a slog?
Yeah, having some years in the space, pretty fortunate. And when we talk to organizations, the large refiners, the large chemical producers, they were customers of mine in earlier at PROS and other companies that I had been in. And so, the world is very small in those areas. And so I was able to go back and talk to folks who I had worked with before. And I mean, it's interesting because there are, even within the refining space, there are organizations that are hesitant to adopt new technology. And then there are those that are absolutely looking for the latest and greatest to try and get a competitive edge in the markets that they serve. And so we found an ideal candidate, a great partner, a Fortune 50 refiner back in 2020, and it just really has gone off from there to kind of grow the space. And then once you're successful, it's really interesting because it's a small world. By word of mouth, people start listening, and you start having conversations. And so I would say today, we're talking with 3 of the top 100 refiners in the U.S. and there's about 115 refineries just here domestically, and more than 500 around the world. So we're just getting started into kind of the adoption of what we do around industrial AI.
So a lot of the companies that I work with and talk to are sort of they're trying to scale big, right? They're trying to sell $100 a month software to hundreds of thousands of people or millions of people, and maybe a few of those are enterprises. I mean, so they're big markets, and there's a whole playbook for that. Where you are is, I mean, it sounds like a very different playbook. Like it sounds like you started with one customer, built the product around their needs. And then, I mean, what are the advantages of that approach? And is there a playbook? Or are you like, oh, this is what I've done these other 3 times, like I'm just going to do that here?
Yeah, there is a playbook. I mean, it's interesting because our competitors in the space and people new to the startup space, they can fall privy to some of those pitfalls. When we adopted and inherited the technology from Petuum, our first goal, because it was a generalized platform, not specific in the industrial space. And so what we had to do is really tailor that to what we were doing with our first customer in the refining space. And so it took a while to do that. It took 12 months, maybe even 18 months.
Was it the data? I mean, was it like needing the data from them and then spending a bunch of time just cleaning it up and training it, the usual?
So it's interesting, Alex, because it's a gift and a curse. Because the industry has these legacy linear optimizers, so they actually have the data that we need, the time series data that we need to create the models that we create and give them better predictions, prescriptions of how they should run their facilities. We are basically taking that same data that's been in the industry for 20 plus years and giving them better results. What we had to do as a company was to make sure that we were still talking and had a frame of reference for those legacy systems, because everybody today is using those legacy systems. So they needed to process, how am I going to apply AI with the terminology and the way that I look at it today? And so we took, 12 months, in 2021 to really, digest that and put that and productize that into what the biggest thing, again, we were talking pitfalls. a stabilized platform. So one consistent platform that you can configure to each of these applications that we deploy. Because when I see new software companies come around, they're throwing creating code and putting customized software in, which in the long run that's not supportable and it's not scalable. And so we were very, very focused early on making sure that we had a platform that we could scale and be consistent across all of our customers.
So I mean, I think the biggest risk, and a lot of investors don't like sort of one customer companies because you end up sucked into building custom software for them versus building a scalable platform. So at what point did you know it was time to go get your second customer or talk to your second customer?
Yeah, and actually the refining customer that we partnered with was our third customer. It was our first in the refining space. Oh. And it's interesting because in the refinery there's 12, 15 units that you can optimize. And so each of those projects are actually different projects. It might be the same customer, but a fractionation unit, and from one refinery to another, a distillation column from one refinery to another, a coker from one refinery to another, works traditionally the same or has the same characteristics. And so anyway, it's one of those things where we've diversified, even though it's just been one customer now. But as I mentioned before, we're talking to two more of the top 100 refiners here in the U.S. and very shortly, I would expect that we'll be working with them as well. My co-founder and I, again, you went back to, hey, what are the pitfalls and those types of things? We didn't want to scale too quickly, too fast, and in fact, we were very pragmatic around going out and getting new customers. Number one, we have a multi-million-dollar backlog today of projects that we could still execute against. And so we wanted to make sure that we were getting the product right for the industry. And we wanted to make sure that we didn't have issues with, competing interests with new customers that may have wanted different things, but, it been in conflict with where we wanted to go with the product, those types of things.
How does that story play with investors? The way you describe your pipeline sounds fundamentally different than most.
It is. I mean, again, my co-founder and I, being engineers, way pragmatic, very conservative. At the end of this year, with all the projects that we have going, we'll be self-sustaining in those types of things. And we have raised, if you can consider $4 million a Series A round, that's what we've raised so far. And I'm always in the markets, to raise a little bit of money, just to bring on new resources for our team, just because we have that backlog, and so I'm always trying to raise a little bit of money to bring in another ML engineer, software engineer, data scientist, so that we can bring some of that backlog forward. But we don't foresee that we'd probably be raising a Series B or anything like that right now. Or even within the next 6 months or those types of things, because we've been, very conservative in the way that we've gone about it. So long story short, we've raised a lot of money, comparatively speaking, I guess, just with that story and having that, initial customer in the refining space, but knowing that, look, this is applicable to every refiner, in the U.S. and around the world.
I mean, it sounds like, given the backlog, questions about like, where does your pipeline come from, or how much does it cost to acquire a new customer? Like, those are they not asked, or is it just like, oh yeah, here's the, like, just take a look, right? It's all right there.
So we have the blueprint, right? So we've done it before. I've been fortunate to do it in many different places, and so it's an enterprise-wide sale, right? So enterprise software, it's 3 months to 9 months to 12 months, just depending on the organization and those types of things. You engage with the either corporate folks that are APC, advanced process control engineers, or folks who are the head of refining operations, right? Folks that would take our calls because we have a value proposition that absolutely resonates with them. And so, we're pretty fortunate that we have that experience and we have that knowledge, because we're having success within, what I consider a real thought leader in the refining space. We're now also being asked through those lines and through those conversations, hey, what could you do for us?
Transitioning a bit, so you spent a lot of time at PROS, which is a public company, in a sales leadership role, and so would love to know what that experience. Maybe just give people like a 2-second overview of what PROS is, and then get into like what that experience was when you got there versus, post going public, and a little bit about that journey, because I think few people have that kind of an experience where they've seen it from the beginning all the way through.
Yeah, look, that was one of the best experiences of my career. It was very interesting joining a company that was 110 people in debt. The company originally, the technology that they had was to optimize revenue for airlines, and so think of B2C consumers, why an airline seat is $1,000 a day up versus $200 for that same seat a month before, right? So revenue management. And when I got there was a partner, gentleman by the name of Jeff Robinson, and I, who basically built a B2B practice for PROS. And so think of pricing, whether it's retail gasoline or whether it's HVAC systems, or think in the distribution, healthcare products and those types of things. So that technology was easily transferable to those B2B markets. But like as I kind of mentioned on our journey with Opro, we had to have a platform that we could take and tailor to those types of industries. And so it took a couple, marquee, lighthouse customers back in the late 2000s, the early 2000s to really get that going. And so when we started in the B2B space, it was literally, a couple $100,000 a year in revenue. And they were side projects, really, things one-off, kind of customized things. And so, with this, platform approach, this more, centric approach, we went to the market and really, built a market from that 300K. And when I left, it was $100 million a year. And so that journey included me being, hey, the first sales guy to do that, by myself with a team to help do demos, to building not just a sales team, but a support team, demo team, value engineering team that could support each step of the way, because, an under $1 million a year, revenue company is very different than a $5 million a year, and there's a step change around $25 million, dollars a year, and then there are many versions of folks of the way you can look at the organization, from 25 to 100 to $250 million a year and those types of things. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to, kind of see that entire process, go through that. In the 13 years that I was there, I actually took PROS public as the SVP of sales for them on the B2B side. And so, it was a very much, over 13 years, an incredible journey. And hopefully do that in about a fourth of the time here at Opro.
You're right. It always takes, the overnight success takes longer than you think it's going to. First off, it's rare that somebody is the leader for that whole time period, right? Because as you said, like, it's a very different thing. Talk about the beginning, like it's just you selling sort of as a side hustle for the company. Like what are you doing? Like, how did you think about the job then? And
so
what made you successful?
What we're trying to do is we've got some projects that we've done in, maybe the healthcare space or in the finance space. How can we use what we've got to create value in larger markets that are more scalable? And for us, we identified those, pretty easily, the distribution space. So that's an industry that has tremendous amount of data. PROS had data science around being able to go through that data set and understand the segmentation of buying behaviors of certain customers and those types of things. And so distribution fell into that. Manufacturing, which for us, included things like, everything from, as I mentioned before, HVAC to oil and gas, to industrial manufacturers. So I mean, you've got Fortune 250 companies that we were able to engage and work with to take the data science and segmentation capabilities that we had as an organization and monetize those. I mean, my career, the entire time, I had a mentor He's like, hey, if you can find the dollars, you will always have customers. So that's what we went and did. We went and helped our customers find dollars that they couldn't get with our technology.
Right. And so as things progress, you mentioned there's sort of a step, things change a little bit at 5 million in revenue, and there's a step change at 25 million. I hope a lot of people listening to this have 25 million in revenue, but what does that, or get there soon? What does that look like? How can you tell things are changing? And as the leader, what are you doing to guide that change?
Yeah, your first thing as a leader is that you're embracing change, because these things. Nike has it was one of those things. Hey, we're going to change the industry, and it's going to be ugly. It's going to be messy. When you're moving that fast, in which over 13 years, I guess it's not crazy fast, but it's still fast. You're going to have to accept that craziness and change. And under $5 million, I've got a bunch of folks who were good salespeople, and maybe the solutions people that they're supporting are generalists, right? So they know everything about about the healthcare distribution space, or they know about the oil and gas space, But as you get into 25 million or so, you're starting to really see within the organization certain needs in certain industries. And so you've really got to go deep, in the specific industry with value engineering folks, with folks that have actually been practitioners in that industry that can come on board and translate the technology into more specific use cases. Because as you grow, and you have some success, competition, and there was stiff competition, in the pricing space for many, and there still is. They're basically trying to copy the success and the messaging that you're having to do. And so, as you grow, it becomes tougher and tougher to differentiate yourself. And so you're having to bring this expertise on board to be able to do that, to be able to resonate with your customers as you grow. Again, from a small, $1 million a year to 25 million and above, kind of organization.
And does that stabilize at 25 million, or is there further you shift from a generalized structure to more of an industry specific structure with non-fungible resources, right? Like you're just on aviation, or you're just on chemicals or whatever, and there's no oh, can you help me with this bank project, right? It's that's a different team.
Right,
does that kind of just stay the same, or are there other organizational changes that happen as you grow past that?
Well, as it really just depends on your TAM, right? And so the addressable market for pricing within those industries was pretty significant, and so at that point, you're not probably bringing in any more specific new expertise, but you are bringing in, you're doubling the size of your teams, and you're making sure that you're organizing them. I mean, you go through, oh, hey, we're going to organize it via industry. Oh, we're going to organize it via territory. We're going to organize things now by territory and industry, because you have the volume of the business to actually support those types of things. And so I can remember as a sales leader one year, traveling 250,000 miles domestically, just because, hey, we had to go territories and we had to go industry expertise through, those particular territories. So I spent some time in London. So I'm spending a lot of time in New York and Chicago, a little bit on the left coast, because that's assigned some folks to go do that. So as the organization grows and as the opportunity grows, you've got to change the structure within your sales team to be able to support that in the right areas. And by the way, there can be times where you overspend and you thought you were going to get dollars from a certain area and it didn't. So there has to be real work into planning and knowing the markets and what you're going to be able to get out of those markets.
So, it's really interesting that you have, first you organize by territory, because people are generalists and it's more important just to be physically proximate when you're doing enterprise sales. Then you shift to a more industry-specific organization, because you need the expertise to be fluent and understand the use cases and really connect with executives. Then you do both, right? Then you have enough density of customer that you can be both an industry expert and in a territory. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, exactly, Alex. It's interesting, because the first step, and I'm just having flashbacks here, we actually hired, because PROS is here in Houston. I'm here in Houston, but we would actually in the beginning only hire folks in Houston, because it was more important for us to be together every day as generalists trying to solve different problems, no matter where they were. whether it's in Chicago or Philadelphia or out in Los Angeles or in London, we would only hire folks in Houston. So as we grew, obviously, we had expertise all across the country. We opened an office in London and eventually had an office also, in France. You explain exactly how things, kind of work out as the stage of the organization, grows.
I mean, it sounds like the proxy for that is 25 million-ish in revenue, but how did you know that it was time to do? Was it just, oh, now we have an expert in this, or somebody like had been focused on the Houston area and then it turned out they were an expert in oil and gas or chemicals because that's all their customers are 80%. Like, did it happen organically or was it a conscious choice?
No, you could start seeing things break, right? And so all of a sudden we're our oil and gas expert, is doing a lot of time in London, because of our largest customer there. And we have 8 projects in London. It's like, yeah, you know what? We need to, start focusing things because we would always try to say, hey, 25% of your time is going to be travel, could get up to 50 and, when you're, late stages of deals and those types of things. And that was all expected. When you started seeing travel get a little out of whack, when you started seeing, work-life balance get a little out of whack, the resources weren't at the right places at the right stages. And so you'd have an, intuitive aspect of, oh yeah, I think Jim's spending way too much time in London. And then you just kind of take a look at the data. It's like, yeah, okay, we've got to do some work in setting an office up in London.
You mentioned in passing value engineering, and I think value engineering is for enterprise sales key. Can you talk more about how you built that function, like, as a single salesperson all the way up through like building out teams to do that?
Yeah, I was going to say, me and my partner Jeff here, we would literally go through. He was a P&L guy. I was more of kind of the sales and price aspect of things. Just trying to create stories within the software that showed value to the customer, right? And so, as a generalist, as a problem solver, engineer, those types of things, it was as a skill, but you could look at how the data, we would bring in sample sets of their data and how we could present their data to them in a way that, have you thought about the value of getting these types of prices or targeting these types of customers, bundling offers to offer these customers, these things, and what it would do from a margins perspective, gross margin perspective, profitability perspective. And hey, this price point, if you were to go down, 3%, you would gain these types of customers, to your overall portfolio and those types of things. So value engineering on the very early days is very, very practical. It's literally getting their data, putting it into solution, taking a look at what you can do from a segmentation perspective, any insights that you can do. In fact, that's what we're doing right now at Opro. That's exactly what we do. We take data, sample data, and do all everything. So it's very standardized. Now, as you get a little bit more mature, what we found is that, yes, people are believing that value proposition is in the market. And so now you'll hire more experts. We hire, from the top, consulting firms, folks who had done this in certain industries or maybe and been in, practice, and had done that for a company themselves, to have them build these more, I would say, higher level business cases, more strategic business cases, because now that we have customers who are, the second adopters. They're not the first adopters. They're, the more, mainstream adopters of technology. They're adopting the technology, but they're trying to figure out what value can they actually assign to it from a strategic perspective. And so again, you're kind of getting more specific in the value engineering capabilities, and that can be anyone who's been a practitioner or any of the consulting firms that you might think have worked from that perspective.
When you talk about that hiring process, like, is there a profile you look for somebody in a value engineering role? And is that a different person than an account exec? Or are you looking for
me, and the way that we grew the team, a value engineer would be very much a different personality than the account exec. Account exec absolutely is a quarterback of the entire operation. They know the value that we're bringing to the customer, but it's really that value engineer is a consultant, is someone who's been in the industry. They may even be an industry expert, who's worked in that capacity before, who's worked on projects to enhance value through, and sometimes they're industry specific value engineering folks. And so, as we got to that stage of, serious enterprise sales, you're talking, 7, 8 figure deals, those types of things. You have to have that sort of credibility and that sort of expert within your portfolio of capabilities as an account manager to make sure that you can, with credibility say, hey, look, it's a $10 million, project, but we're bringing you 80, 90, $100 million in benefit kind of thing.
I mean, those are big numbers, right? Most companies aren't selling $10 million projects. Is there a playbook that you use, or is there sort of a way of thinking about selling something like that that's different? Like, how is that different from in the beginning? You said, $200K here, $200K there. Like, what changes when you're selling the bigger project?
Yeah, I mean, the buy-in from the organization obviously is just gets ratcheted up a lot further. I mean, the reason why we probably had the opportunity to sell a 7 or 8 figure deal is because we've had what I'd call point, successes. And so you've had, implementation success, maybe across a business line, or, a couple of instances of optimization, right, in the business. And so now you've created momentum, with these point successes to where you can start talking strategically around, all right, we're giving you the capabilities in these areas and this geographies. If we give you the capability across your entire enterprise, what does that mean to you? I've been very fortunate in my career, PROS, Opro. I mean, the solutions that we bring to the table, are contributing millions of dollars to the operational efficiencies of the organization, right? So the value proposition is very, very high. And so the only barrier to entry is really, hey, you've got to have those point solution successes to be able to prove it.
Well, so when you say point solution success, it sounds like there is a smaller project that was successful. The product worked for it. You said it would do X, it did X, maybe 2X or something. And so that gives the salesperson credibility to say, hey, should we do this for more business units, or, more? So, it's super important that the go-to-market, the account exec skill there and ability to build a relationship and go find the expansion opportunity. I had a client once who, was like, well, I want this deal closed. And like the product had broken on the customer, and he was trying to negotiate an expansion and like higher pricing while the product was actually not functioning the way it was supposed to. And I think you kind of miss that. Like, you can't blame the sales guy if the product doesn't do what you said the product would do, right? Like, you need to actually deliver on what you sold them before you can go expand.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And look, we had our challenges, at PROS back in the day. And, look, if it was easy, anybody could do it, right? So, but with that being said, there's tremendous opportunity in executing in a way that you should be executing against. And we had the blueprint at PROS, and we have a good blueprint here at Opro as well. And so, as far as and we've had 100% implementation success, and I know at PROS it was running like 98.9%. I in the years that I was there, I think the 13 years, I think there's only 1 or 2 customers that actually turned the system off. So it was very sticky software, and I think I've been fortunate again in my career where. And you only got the benefits if you had the software up and running and it was running properly. So there's obviously efforts to make sure that it was running properly. But if you took it away, those dollars, they went away with it, because a person can't make those decisions, as good as the data science and the AI in our case. So
yeah, talk about the stickiness of it, because I think. Some people are afraid to charge a lot up front, right? If you signed a $10 million contract, you're going to make the thing work, right? Like, to me, that's like, there's some stickiness is just, you spend a bunch of money on it, right? Which funds the build out, which funds the integration, which funds, you said the project, not the software. I'm perhaps too familiar with PROS, like there's a bunch of implementation that goes into that project. It's not just you bought some software off the shelf and started using it.
Right.
But is that a contributor to the retention as opposed to like a detriment? Like because it's expensive, you're more likely to be retained because you're going to do the things right to use it well and get the returns.
I think that contributes to the stickiness of it. I know at PROS, we would always, claim that, hey, half of our business is replacement business because, there had been other, companies out in the space that had promised certain things and maybe couldn't deliver from a technical perspective. PROS, because they had, that revenue management side of the business and they had some dollars. We did have some dollars to be able to invest in the technology. And so, we were actually able to, do the things that we said that we could do because we had the technology to be able to do that. But I mean, look, I think if you spent $1 million on an application and it's not giving you the dollars that, the value and return that you should, companies are going to take it out. At Opro, we're actually we are doing replacement business for those legacy technologies. And it's not that they were doing anything bad. They're just 25-year-old technologies that can't get you the optimal answers that you can get with machine learning and AI, deep learning optimization technology. And so we've got an opportunity to replace those. And oh, by the way, because we can, do multiple units and lots of data, we can do new things that they couldn't even do before in the refining industry. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the higher dollars would probably keep somebody in, but in business today, you have to get a return on that investment, or else, you're going to be looking for a new role in your organization. So.
Right. Well, so a really common question I get from clients and founders is about pilots, like how to structure a pilot, how to do a pilot. I mean, is it a safe assumption when you're doing a $10 million project, like there's a pilot before you sign the 7 or 8 figure deal, or is that not always the case? I mean, PROS, we're talking a lot about them because it's a great success story, and it's an area that I'm familiar with. Where was there a point where you didn't have to do pilots anymore?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And this is the stages of companies, right? Under $1 million, under $5 million, crossing the chasm, right? It's like those first, companies that are used to going out and trying new technology. They usually have a pilot program because they're so used to doing that. They're such industry leaders in doing that. They usually have a pilot program that you would fit into. At PROS, it was a little bit more difficult because it hadn't been standardized. The data that we were getting from our customers wasn't as standard. And so there was a lot of cleaning of data and just matching data to make sure that we could bring it into the solution to show, a good story and make sure that we could get value. And PROS was very good about it too. It's like if there was a company at a stage that could not get value from the data that they had, we would help them, put together, a plan, hey, this is the type of data that you're going to need to do a pricing project and those types of things. So we actually did walk away. At Opro, it's great because, again, we're replacing legacy technology that has the time series data already within their confines. And so, for us, it's just, taking that data that's pretty much already been cleaned and already been, siphoned through and giving them a better answer with, through AI.
So when you come in and replace something, whether it's other companies or Opro maybe is a better example, like how much better does it have to be? Right? Is it a little bit better? Is it like do customers tell you?
Yeah. So for us, it's interesting. The other products from an Opro perspective that we compete with, they're really customized solutions, and so we inherited about $30 million of R&D from Petuum in our platform. And so we're able to, have a software solution that our customers can actually look at, right? They can actually go do some of the modeling themselves. And other competitors in the space, they have customized solutions that they do everything in, behind closed doors, kind of in a black box and those types of things. And so we just have, when we're replacing them because, our customers see an extension of how they're going to use and bring in our technology under their capability umbrella, right? So they're going to own our solutions instead of somebody else owning the solution for them long term down the road.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it cuts both ways, right? Some people, some use cases for AI, you prefer a black box. You just want the thing to do what it says. Sounds like for your solution, the customer wants. Do all customers want to get their hands dirty and like go in and mess with stuff, or is it very sort of customer specific? Are there clear segments where this kind of customer or this use case, they want to roll up their sleeves, and these ones, they just want the 20% increase and that's it. They don't care.
It's really interesting, Alex, because we are seeing a bifurcation. So the larger organizations, the Fortune, let's say 250 refiners, chemical process facilities, petrochemicals, those kind of, they have their own internal staffs that have expertise in this advanced process control, refining operations, those types of things. And they want to bring our technology in-house because they want to use it as a way to, augment their own skill set and become an expert in AI and using AI in the industrial automation world. Some of the mom and pop shops, some of the smaller folks, 1 or 2 refineries, those types of folks, they don't have that layer of experts within the walls. And so for those folks, they just want to throw the project over the fence, have you do it, and they can get the benefits of it, and have it up and running, and we don't have to touch it, we don't have to worry about it.
Sort of a substitute for having that team, like they don't have the team in house, so they'll use the software kind of to get 80% of the value of having that team.
That's correct. That's a good way. That's a good way to look at it.
Can you tell that going in? Is it just like, oh, these guys are Fortune 250 or better, so they're going to want this?
Yep.
And does that change your sales process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even the messaging, to the larger organizations is, not that the smaller organizations couldn't take it in house themselves, but the appetite for that is less at those smaller organizations, and so. So we focused, on getting our customers what they want. Obviously the value, but obviously that extra ability to bring in a technology. Because folks, their own marketability within their own organizations and other organizations is a skill sets that they know and they bring. Having the ability to bring AI, into their skill set and being able to have experience deploying these types of solutions in the industrial automation, environment, that's pretty important to them.
Yeah. So this has been phenomenal. I have a couple wrapping up questions. Some I asked everybody, a couple I think I asked in different contexts, but I'd love to get your take on them. First one is, are headhunters worth it when you're hiring in the go-to-market space?
For the most part, it's been hit or miss, but I have been fortunate enough. There's a gentleman that I've known for 25 years in the industrial automation space that, and he knows everybody. And so I've been able to work with him to bring on folks that have been good. Now, it's very niche and very nuanced, but I would say in the right circumstance, yes, headhunters do work.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of the success of Opro right now is down to being in this niche. You're going to go into other niches later, but like you're in this niche where it's word of mouth is a thing. It's easy to find hires. A guy, right? The headhunter that knows everybody. So it sounds like that's a big. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah,
that's a big part of the success.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to have a lot of contacts within that world, been in the oil and gas space, many years, the AI space for more than 25 years, right? So, we're fortunate to have those contacts and those resources. And with that being said, the refining TAM, some $10 billion domestically, probably 15 to $20 billion around the world, right? So you look at companies like Aspen Tech that's got a $9 billion market cap. You look at companies like Honeywell. We've been fortunate to talk to the CEO and Chief Digital Officer of Rockwell Automation. These are folks who are doing the more legacy technologies, right? And they're looking at us like, oh, that you could be the next generation of what we do. So yeah, while it's niche, oil and gas and off a lot of people's minds, hey, that's kind of off limits from an investment perspective. we're doing a lot of good work to help these folks, be more efficient, more environmentally conscious and energy efficient. So.
Yeah, we didn't talk about climate very much. You mentioned one of the use cases is climate. Can you say a little bit more about the impact?
Yeah, we worked with a large cement organization, and this was the first organization actually tracked it. So we optimized their ball mill processes and reduced 40% of what the normal CO2 emissions would be. I mean, these are thousands of
cement is a big CO2 producer, right? Like one of the top.
Yeah, absolutely. I in my dreams, and the grand thinking and those types of things, we could get to a point where our technology was open source for China and India and those types of things, to be able to just reduce the emissions of all these industrial complexes, which are hugely important. But if they just had a little bit of science applied to them, could really do some nice things in reducing emissions around the world.
Yeah, I mean, they're not. It sounds like they don't buy to reduce the emissions. They buy because it's more efficient, and a side effect is a 40% reduction.
That is correct. And it in the oil and gas space, they attribute 3% energy reduction. The CO2 we're still tracking, but because the process is running more efficiently, it is it's producing less CO2. So. But yes, the highest, as I mentioned before, no mentor, stick to the value, right? So the value is the reason why folks are using our technology today.
Well, yeah. So there's so many climate people going out there saying you should use this because it'll reduce your climate impact. And at the end of the day, it's like it costs me money and it doesn't make me money. Like, no, I don't. A lot of people they can't get budget for it. It gets deprioritized. It's a nice to have. Whereas if you can do both, then it becomes a no-brainer. I mean, it's about, you sell it based on the value, but there's a feel-good aspect and a climate impact aspect that's also becomes part of the conversation.
Yeah, OPRO actually stands for Optimizing Process and Responsible Operations. So through AIs, through AI. So it's a part of our vision, and we'll try to optimize and get the maximum efficiencies as we can. That's our goals.
Yeah, well, so the couple questions I ask everybody. First one is, what are the 3 best practices that you wish every founder would do? It doesn't have to be in go-to-market only. It could be in sort of anything.
3 best practices. I mean, I love folks who have grand ideas. I'm just very practical around, make sure that any technology or anything that you're creating is providing value, whether it's through the healthcare technology, whatever it is, that it's providing value. It's one of those things where we get lost in ideas, and sometimes that can be, I think, crippling at times. Second thing, just know your strengths and know the strengths of your team. It's really important, especially early on. I mean, you're going to be working together every day. I talk to all my team every day. And the third thing is really the communication aspect of it. I know human nature. Hey, no news is good news. I find that actually the opposite in the startup world. It's like, if you're not communicating, if they're not hearing things, and I don't know if it's a generational thing. The younger generation just wants to be communicated more with more. I just think it's imperative, and I make a point to communicate with our team every day just to make sure that they have all their questions answered, and we understand where they're coming from as well, from resources and things that they need to overcome barriers. So,
yeah, that's great advice. Next question is, what is the best advice you ever got?
Oh, for me, it's interesting. My the founder of PROS actually would always talk about how you should act the part. You might not be the VP of sales, you might not be the CEO, whatever it is. Just act that part that you want to be, and through that advice, it kind of acted my way into being a co-founder and a CEO and SVP of sales of a publicly traded company. So
yeah, that is great advice. That's one that hasn't come up before, and I like that. I like that a lot. I'm acting like a very world famous podcaster, and maybe one day that will come true.
You'll get there.
Well, so it's been great having you on the show. Where can people find you? Opro.ai, I assume. But any other ways to get in touch?
Yeah, Opro.ai, Rob.Christenson at Opro.ai. I'm on LinkedIn, so anybody who's interested in learning a little bit more about what we do, how we're trying to help save our customers, make our customers money, and save the world a little bit as well, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, it's been great having you on. Thank you, Rob, for the time. If you found the episode helpful, please like and subscribe. That's what the kids tell me to say every episode, so I'm on it because one day I'm going to be that world famous podcaster. Our audio engineer and video editor is James Fix. Ryan DaCosta worked on the marketing side of production. Music is by The Great White Shark. I'm your host, Alex Shartsis. Thank you for listening.